Hi, I'm Kalli Kenney, and I wanted to share something with you that I feel like I share all the time with folks that are just learning calligraphy, especially when they want to learn broad edge work. And that is how to use the Pilot Parallel pen, or even that there is a Pilot Parallel pen. So often people will go into stores like Hobby Lobby or craft stores, and they'll find these markers, these felt tip markers, and then they'll go home and they'll attempt to do calligraphy. And because of the nature of that tool, the felt tip marker, calligraphy marker, they're not able to get the results that they want, and they think they're no good at calligraphy, when actually it is just that tool. And so I often recommend this Pilot Parallel pen. In fact, when I teach calligraphy broad edge work classes or workshops, I get them to get the Pilot Parallel pen. So the Pilot Parallel pen, you can buy them individually, or they come in, I've seen on Amazon where you can buy a pack of all four for a really good price. And so typically a good price on a Pilot Parallel pen is, around $9 or $10 just for one. And then on Amazon, I've even seen where you can get the pack of four for $23, which is great. So I'm just going to kind of show you what I do in the beginning of a class to teach people about the Pilot Parallel pen, and then let you kind of see what you can do with one. So this is the set of four. These are the different sizes. This red one, it comes from the manufacturer in four sizes: 1.5, 3, let's do it in order, 2.4, 3.8, and 6.0. And you will notice that on mine I've put these spongy pen grips, and the reason I do that is because when I take the top off, I like to put the top on the back, and these grips kind of hold them on there. And for me, when I'm writing, that gives balance and weight to the back of the pen, and that's just what I prefer. So the reason why you can't just put the back on, let me show you. I'll pull this one out. So this is so skinny back here, and that is annoying. And so I just stick these on there, and these are just super inexpensive. Okay, so let's test drive this thing. We'll put those to the side. We'll come back to that. But when you open up your package, this one just happens to be a 3.8, and what I like to do is I just walk people through what all is in here. So you have some directions back there. These are your ink cartridges. It comes with a black and a red, and it comes with this little, it almost looks like a negative. I don't know, some of you may not be old enough to remember cameras that have negatives, but this is what you will kind of, I call it floss. You floss your, if you ever get clogged ink in there, you can just kind of floss it and clean it out with this. And then this one is a bladder. This is a way that you can clean. You can fill it with warm soapy water, and you can blow it through. Here, let's take this apart so you can see what I'm talking about. So of course this is called the top, and this is called the barrel. And let's unscrew the barrel from the pen. And then I like to go ahead and just take it all apart so people just aren't afraid of it. And so we pull this part out. And the reason it is called a parallel pen is because of this. These two little metal pieces here, this is going to be difficult to show you, I get. But basically, I'm turning it on its side here. These are two pieces of metal, and they're parallel to one another. And they're separated by these little piers almost. And those piers keep those two pieces of parallel metal apart from one another so that the ink can flow down into them. So when you are cleaning your parallel pen, you can just pull it all the way apart, soak it in some warm soapy water. You could use just a little bit of white vinegar if you wanted to. So when you're putting it back together, oh, you want to keep those together though. Hold on. You just stick them back in this little tip and make sure you push it all the way in. And right back here, you'll see these two little pieces of metal. And if you don't see them, if it's down too far like that, you know you need to push that tip in further so that you can see them. And then you will put this back in here. Now your threads are on this end because that's what you're gonna screw your barrel back on with. But before we do that, I want to show you. So inside this little hole, there is a little piece of plastic that kind of pokes out. It almost looks like a fingernail. It's the shape of a fingernail. And that fingernail piece is what, when you're putting your cartridges in, there's a little disc inside there. That little disc indicates the color of the ink. I mean, because it is kind of hard to tell unless you have a bubble in there what color that ink is. But that disc is what lets you know. And when you put this in there, that fingernail piece will puncture that disc, push it to the side, and then allow the ink to flow into this little place right here, this little spirally thing. This is kind of a reservoir. It holds your ink and then allows it to go down into your tip there. Okay, so I'm not actually going to put these in there because I already have some that are set up, but let me put this back together. So I'm going to put in the dental floss. Oh yeah, so back to the dental floss. Now that you see those parallel pieces of metal, you see how that works. If it ever gets clogged in there, you just need to kind of clean it out this way. A second thing, if ever my ink is kind of not working and I'm wondering why, the first line of defense is to do this little dental floss thing. I'm just going to floss it out. There might be some dried ink in there. And by the way, I have never had nearly as much trouble with my parallel pens as I did growing up using all the different pens that I used to use. They were cartridge pens, your very common cartridge pens. That's what I learned on. But I used to always have to pull them apart, clean them up, that kind of thing. I rarely have trouble with my parallel pens. And so that would be the first line of defense. The second line of defense would be to, let me show you one that's already, it already has ink in there. So if it's not flowing and I've cleaned this out with that dental floss, another trick is to give this a good little pinch. Do you see how there's ink in this one and it's kind of filled it up and you can see the lines down in there? If you don't see ink in there, it's a good bet that it's not flowing. So giving this a nice little pinch. Now if you squeeze it too hard, you could pop this. I mean, you'd have to squeeze it pretty hard, but you could pop this. And the other thing is you don't want to squeeze it so hard that you're dripping drops out of your nib, out of your tip there. But, you know, just a good little pump. And definitely don't do it over your artwork. That would be terrible if you had a drip. So do it over to the side over a paper towel. All right. So we've talked about the Pilot Parallel pen, how you pull it apart, how you load the ink. Now another idea with loading the ink, you can actually load ink directly into the barrel. So if you're a production calligrapher and you're doing lots of envelopes or something like that, you don't want to be changing cartridges all the time. So you can just put your good quality ink directly into the barrel. I have actually never had it leak. So someone said once you could put, what do you call it, rubber cement around there to seal it in. The truth is, I've done it for years and years and years, thousands and thousands of envelopes. Never have I had it leak. So I don't think it's a problem. But one thing you should know is the ink that comes with it is not archival ink. And so over time or with sunshine, this ink will fade. This is just more for fun and learning. Now it also comes in the ink. This is like I'm doing a commercial for Pilot Parallel pens, and I guess I sort of am, but it's not intentional. I don't get anything from this. I love Pilot Parallel pens and want to help folks. So you can buy the ink, and this is the assorted cartridges, or if you use a lot of black or if you use a lot of a color, you can buy the separate. Does that make sense? So you can buy the separate boxes of ink there. All right. So next I want to show you how to drive this thing. Okay, we're going to close that up, set it to the side. I'm going to get a piece of paper out. And these are just some cool tricks for while you're working with your parallel pens. So just to give you an idea. Oh, by the way, these are the sizes that the manufacturer, makes them in. But there is a company called Paper and Ink Arts, It's paperandinkarts.com. You can actually go to their website. I love that store. I've been to the actual store before, and it's just a family-owned kind of business. And of course, I just love paper and ink and all tools for art. And so that's a great place to go. It's a great place to shop. And one of the things that they offer is they get a 1.5, and they will actually cut down the width of this broad edge down here. And you can see where I used gold ink once, and it stained and made it kind of dirty. This was my most well used, well loved. This has written lots and lots and lots of letters. But they'll actually trim down this tip down here so it will become a 1.0. So if you're using smaller, if the paper that you're working on is smaller, you're definitely going to need a smaller tip, a smaller nib. So just to give you an idea of the sizes here. Another thing, do you notice this little window? This little window, you want, when you're writing, you want for the little window to be up, faced up. So like you may not get as good a flow if it's like this. So just turn it over. And then the blue, I actually have 2 blues out because I want to share with you some cool tricks that you can do with them. So do you see the differences in these widths down here of this broad edge? So for demonstration purposes today, I'm going to use this bigger one, this 6.0. That way you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to pack all of this back up real quick. All right, so let's see what color ink I have in this one. I think that may be yellow. Yes. Okay. And in this one, I have blue or green. Maybe it's green. Yes. Okay, so this is the one with the yellow, remember? Now watch this. You can actually take this yellow and you can just barely kiss for just a second the 2 tips together on this one side. So 1 1,000, 2 1,000. That was super quick. Look at that. Now you kind of get this ombre effect, and the more you write with it, then it goes back to yellow. So you could technically, you know, put green on this side and purple on that side. And then another cool trick you can do, maybe I should do it with the green. I think green and purple go well together. So what I've done over here on the side is I've taken just a little bit of watercolor and a palette. So I have a little bit of purple paint here. And then I also, because it's just a little bit too watery, well, I'll show you what it looks like when you do it really watery like that. You get a water, see how solid and more opaque that is? So okay, so now I'm going to take this purple and I'm just going to touch it to that tip there. Just let it kiss for just a second and show you what this looks like. Do you see how adding that, it just made it more watery. It did not necessarily, it's a little more translucent and flowy. And then I'll show you another. So this is another cool thing about this pen that you don't get with other broad edge pens. You can actually go up on the side. Do you see how I made that little curlicue? So remember, keep the window up, but you can actually go up and write as a mono line on that corner and get a tiny, tiny thin. Okay, because my watercolor idea is it's not getting the purple in there like I want to. So I need it to be a little more saturated. So I got this just super inexpensive but very handy watercolor disc. It has 5 different colors. A good friend of mine shared this with me, Mindy Hunt, giving you a little shout out, girl. So it's a little more dense, less watery. I'm going to put this in there like that. Okay, do you see how now we have this purple coming through? It was a little more concentrated. That's the word, not dense, concentrated. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to rinse this brush off. Oh, I feel like there's one more tip I need to share with you, and that is this. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure. So this is a tip about the inks. And actually, this thing has 6 layers to it. I was mistaken. When you are, the one thing you kind of want to steer clear from, in my experience, is any kind of ink that has glitter in it. Glitter is what tends to clog these up so much. And so I definitely wouldn't put a glitter in the barrel or through this, because remember those that little window back there with the 2 little pieces of metal? That glitter's got to fit through that hole, and so it's not going to do that very easily. So I recommend not using glitter with this, unfortunately. Maybe going back in over this, like you could take your brush and get the glitter and then go back over it and give yourself some highlights. And then the other thing, what was that other thing? Oh yeah, just a quick tip to help you make your work a little better, a rule of thumb, is when you're writing, how do you know which size to use? Well, you want the size of so like this word, laugh. We're going to call, so let me see if I can just do it like this. How about, I'll do A, B, and then C. Okay, so from the top here, this is called your waistline, and this is called your baseline. This is an ascender line, by the way, and then your caps line is somewhere right in there, and this is like a midline. But for your X height or your base height right in here, a rule of thumb is that you want that height to be 5 nib widths high. Oh, mine's a little short. So see, this is a little bit thick, a little bit fat. It would be more legible if this waistline was up to right there. Does that make sense? So an A written up here would just be a little more legible. So if you're using, I'm going to go and show you the 2.4 because it's considerably smaller. I'm not sure what color ink I have in here. So let's see what our blue, oh that's beautiful. So that's going to be your X height. So if the lettering, that's your baseline and your waistline, and this is your X height or your base height. So if you're not sure what size letters you should be doing, just a good rule of thumb is to give yourself a little guide over on the side on your scrap sheet like this. And then the reason is, if I were to write with this pen this big, let me just show you what that looks like if I write joy that big. Do you see how you can hardly even tell the difference between the thicks and thins? It is really lost, and I didn't even write it as big, but you see how you lose the thick and thin, the contrast when you do it, when you write too large with a smaller nib. But by the same token, if I were to write with this really big nib, this small, woo, do you see? The results are just, I mean, it's just ridiculous, kind of how fat it is. completely unlegible. So at any rate, that's your introduction to the Pilot Parallel pen, kind of how I use it. And by the way, the reason I shared this is because I did mention that I teach with this a lot, but I have noticed that over the last few weeks, I have given this same spiel so many times. I thought maybe I should record it. It would just be easier to share. So I hope you enjoy using your Pilot Parallel pens to do some broad edge work and kind of mix it up a little bit. Thanks. Bye-bye.